Chapter 15. He actually called out Zhen. Midnight moonlight slipped in through the narrow seam of the curtains like the edge of a blade, leaving a streak of silvery white upon the dark floor. The bathroom door swung open, releasing a rush of damp steam. Footsteps echoed faintly in the hollow room until a pair of leather slippers stopped before the window. A large hand seized the heavy curtain and gave it a sharp pull. The moonlight outside vanished, and with it the streak of white upon the floor. The room was swallowed by darkness. From the direction of the leather sofa came the sound of a cushion being pressed down, the faint squeezing indicating that someone had just sat down. That person seemed entirely accustomed to, or perhaps even relished, this darkness. Having been enveloped by it for so long, it was as though he had already fused with it, indistinguishable from the night itself. The light that returned to the room came not from the moon, but from the glow of a laptop resting across his knees. A rectangular glow illuminated a face carved with hard lines. Stripped of its usual gentleness, those sharply defined features revealed a rare and unmistakable air of aggression. Damp strands of hair, still beaded with water, were pushed back from his forehead. In the depths of his black eyes flickered an unhidden mix of nonchalance and razor-sharp intensity. The corners of the mouth curved faintly, the arc just enough to embody a chilling indifference. It was Xiao, yet not the Xiao one often saw. His gaze lowered, half-lidded, fixed upon the screen before him. The glow of the screen faded, gradually dimmed, and finally went dark, only to flare back to life at the press of his finger the next moment. This cycle repeated 3 times, until at last the man before the laptop seemed to reach some immense resolution. Slowly he stretched out his hand and pressed the play button. The dark scene on the screen began to move. Then a heavy, labored moan suddenly spilled from the laptop. The sound that had once been scattered and carried off by the evening breeze now unfurled again within the deathly stillness of the room, seeping bit by bit into the surrounding darkness, imbued with a midnight allure that made it all the more intoxicating. From the angle of the dashcam, only half the man's figure in the back seat could be seen. Yet it was clearer than what Xiao had witnessed in that moment. The man tilted his chin upward, tracing a long, graceful curve. There seemed to be a sheen of sweat upon his neck, catching the faintest glimmer of light. His Adam's apple jutted prominently, sliding again and again with every note of his voice. One arm moved in a steady rhythm, its force and speed declaring how unbearable the heat of his arrival was as it burned through him. Xiao set his finger on the volume key, turning the sound higher. The voice, low, husky, rough-edged, poured out, stirring up a wave of shivers. Those eyes must have been blurred with haze, those lashes surely damp with a veil of mist, those lips vivid and alluring, and that body, it had to be burning, searingly hot. The suggestive associations stirred the yearning buried deep within Xiao's gaze, a fervor he struggled to restrain. His heartbeat quickened, blood surging to a boil, the fierce rush of desire in his chest flaring so violently that he began to wonder whether he too had drunk down the same dark spiced liquor tonight. After much hesitation, the loosely draped bathrobe was finally brushed aside, unveiling the powerful and smooth contours of a masculine physique. Muscles rippled downward in a sinuous flow, dormant strength coiled beneath the surface, all the more dangerous for its restraint. Xiao let out a low, unwilling curse, a rough fuck slipping past his lips. As lust burrowed into his brain like an insect, every shred of reason was mercilessly cast aside. His hand closed around himself, startling at the searing heat and rigid strength he felt. The raw intensity of the sensation made his brows knit, regret instantly rising in his chest. He should never have given in to that reckless impulse and opened the video. He should never have allowed himself to be tempted by that man again. He should certainly never have become so feverishly aroused. And yet the pressure of his hand grew heavier and heavier beyond his control. On the screen the man seemed to be suffering unbearably, his voice roughening with each ragged breath. The sound made Fanshawe's very heart tremble. Almost without thinking, his free hand reached once more for the volume key, trying to raise it higher, only to find it had already been turned to the maximum. Dissatisfaction swelled within him, twisting into a dark, violent edge. His gaze sharpened, cold, and merciless. It was as though he stood in the inferno of karmic flames, ice blue fire that scorched through every sin, burning away his false, hypocritical shell inch by inch. Fanshawe's eyes fastened onto the screen, his stare an invasion upon the man captured within. He panted, tilting his head slightly as if to follow the line of that man's moving arm downward. But almost immediately he realized his own absurdity. This was nothing but a recording. It couldn't be rotated, couldn't grant him a 360-degree unrestrained view, couldn't let him ravage and peer freely from every angle. At that thought, Fanshawe was suddenly stunned. Was he out of his mind? Just now, had he truly wanted to see that part of another man? The movements of his hand stilled at once. A sheen of cold sweat spread across his back. His desire-dimmed eyes grew inscrutable, unreadable. He drew out a cigarette, struck a match, and lit it. With slow, deliberate movements, he pulled the bathrobe closed around himself. The screen still burned with scenes of spring. Fanshawe, cigarette pinched between his fingers, stared fixedly at it. He had never cared much for indulgence in flesh, yet tonight he had lost control of himself again and again. His eyes grew darker, more vicious, each drag of smoke harsher than the last. His body pulsed with a pressure so violent he thought he might explode. Forget it. Why bother getting worked up? He would treat it as nothing more than watching a porn clip. That person was, after all, no different from a performer, a hard-working, merely satisfying third-rate actor. Casting off the weight of psychological restraint, Fanshawe allowed himself to stop resisting pleasure. Completely immersed, his hand moved with raw fervor, striving to match the rhythm of what played out on the screen before him. When passion reached its peak, he stretched out his hand, and through the barrier of the screen, gently brushed his fingertips over the man's face, neck, and chest. His breath grew harsher, faster, his chest heaving. Fanshawe and the man quickened their pace together, both letting out sensual, low moans. All of a sudden he heard the man on the screen, sinking deep into the abyss of desire, murmur softly, his voice laced with longing, "Zhen, Zhen?" At such a crucial moment, Shulang actually called out, "Zhen." Fuck. In an instant, Fanshawe went limp down there. End of chapter 15. Chapter 16. An interesting game. Lucian drew in a deep breath and lengthened his stride as he stepped onto the runway. He was no professional catwalk model. His height fell short, and he lacked the polish of experience. Fortunately, the employer cared little for such things. As long as the face was good and the look matched the piece on display, that was enough. After all, the real reason was simple. Small-time models like Lucian came cheap. It was supposed to be only a rehearsal, yet nerves gripped him tightly. The second-to-last model had already stepped from the backstage into the glare of the spotlights. When that model pivoted at the end of the catwalk, Lucian finally took his step forward. As the very last model to appear, the grand finale, he wore the only crown in the show, a collector's edition men's crown. Unlike the accessories that had been displayed earlier, this crown existed for one purpose alone, to elevate the brand's value and flaunt the designer's virtuosity. Because it was only a rehearsal, the seats surrounding the runway held but a scattering of spectators, mainly staff from the organizers and the brand company. There were exceptions too, like the man seated at the very end of the runway, dressed in a sharply tailored dark suit paired with a vintage shirt in the same shade. every button fastened neatly all the way up to his jawline. He was dazzling to behold, his allure split evenly between ascetic restraint and aristocratic elegance. His long, slender legs were casually crossed, yet even beneath the tailored lines of haute couture, the power and vitality of his frame showed through. With that effortless pose alone, he became yet another focal point of the scene. The man's eyes were calm and steady as he gazed straight at the runway. After enduring countless glances, intentional or unintentional, that had come his way from others, he finally revealed a smile, one so devastatingly handsome, dazzling in its suddenness. Lucian walked forward with practiced grace, yet all the mental fortifications he had built up crumbled at the sight of that smile. Panic seized his heart, and his step faltered as his foot twisted, nearly sending him tumbling. In the audience, the man's brow furrowed faintly. He uncrossed his legs, yet his composure did not break. There was no sign of panic or surprise in his expression. Lucian quickly steadied himself, straightening his posture before turning back down the runway, completing a finale that, while not flawless, at least reached its end. Mr. Fan, when Lucian stepped into the resting area, stage makeup still painted across his face, he said softly, "I'm sorry to have you kept waiting for so long." It wasn't a long wait at all. The show was pretty interesting to watch. Fan Xiao's tone carried no trace of empty politeness. It sounded wholly sincere. "You like watching fashion shows?" Lucian was a little surprised. Fan Xiao often gave off a feeling much like Shulang, gentle, proper, knowing exactly when to advance and when to retreat. Because of that, Lucian had naturally assumed Fan Xiao, like Shulang, would have little interest in this sort of fashion event. With a tender motion, Fan Xiao brushed at Lucian's hair. The glittering fragments used as decoration scattered down in a soft shimmer, though some clung stubbornly to his strands. With patient fingertips, Fan Xiao plucked away the pieces caught between them, replying in an often yet intimate murmur, "Because you're here, that's what makes it interesting." Boom! Lucian felt as though he had been dropped into a cauldron of boiling water, like a shrimp with no sense of direction, slowly steamed until it turned into a color intoxicating to behold. His hand clenched at the fabric of his trousers, and only after steadying his breath for a long moment did he manage to ask, "Mr. Fan, is it that you want me to model for you again this time?" The glittering fragments in his hair had already been brushed away. Fan Xiao's hand trailed gently down along the strands, skimming Lucian's shoulder before dropping to his side. "Not this time. This time I've come especially to ask for your help." Lucian's face showed a flicker of puzzlement. "Help? Help with what? And what could I possibly help Mr. Fan with?" Fan Xiao's smile carried a trace of indulgent fondness. "Of course. Our Zhen ought to be a little more confident, don't you think? Tomorrow night I have a rather important banquet. As you know, I have only just arrived in this country, and I don't have any friends around me who can help give me some presents. The other side will be 3 people, and it wouldn't be proper for me to attend alone. So could I ask you to come with me to help me entertain the guests?" Entertain the guests? Within Lucian's circle there was no shortage of dirty dealings, and the word entertain often carried murky undertones. Fan Xiao understood at once, his lips curving with a faint smile. "It's nothing more than having a few drinks together and chatting a little. I promise I'll have you safely home before 12 o'clock at night." "I didn't mean anything else." Lucian's face warmed with embarrassment, though soon a touch of happiness brightened his expression. "Last time Mr. Fan helped me so much. This time I'll be sure to give my best." Fan Xiao had just parted his lips to thank him when a man in a beret approached. His expression seemed slightly troubled, yet he wasted no time stating his purpose. "Lucian, the brand side asked me to inform you that you won't be showcasing the final crown piece anymore. They've reassigned it to someone else. You'll still be presenting the earlier sets of accessories." Lucian was taken aback, and with Fan Xiao present, he felt all the more embarrassed. He asked in haste, "Why did they replace me? Was it because I didn't perform well just now on the runway?" In rehearsals, it was most common for performances to fall short. After all, no one was giving their full effort yet. The man in the beret hesitated for a moment, then pursed his lips and said, "You know how it is in our circle. Whoever pays more gets the final say. It's not like you don't know that. All right, it's just a niche brand. Losing the finale isn't the end of the world. There'll be a next time." Next time? Lucian swallowed down the words that rose to his tongue, his face falling into silence, heavy with disappointment. "Is there anything I can help with?" Fanchon asked once the man in the beret had left. Lucian gave a bitter smile and shook his head, forcing some strength back into his voice. "Tomorrow night I'll be there on time." The Conquet Bar was one of the most renowned spots in the city. The water-rotted, worm-eaten door creaked open, and beyond it stretched a vast, endless sea of stars, profound in mystery, infinite in reach. Galaxies shimmered in the depths like jeweled constellations. Flares lay as still as a mirrored lake, and from every direction arose a breath of ethereal light. With a long creak, the wooden door swung shut again, as if a single stroke had severed the entrant from all ties to the mortal world. Everything once believed eternal, infinite, immutable, was revealed to be nothing more than a grand illusion of prosperity, a brilliance that dissolved into emptiness. Reclining against the sofa, Fanshawe slowly sipped the wine in his hand. He gazed up at the dome of stars and all at once felt that his game had become unbearably dull. For years he had searched for amusements to save off the tedium of his life. Of all the entertainments he had found, Shulang was the one who had held his interest the longest, the one on whom he had spent the most thought and effort. Yet now, beneath this counterfeit canopy of stars, weariness crept over him once again, and a feeling as lifeless as ashes rose in his heart. The icy sea water seemed to surge up from beneath his feet bit by bit, as if dragging him back into that terrifying, grief-stricken world. The sea roared with towering waves. The crowd's screams pierced the air, and instinct drove them to flee, yet still people were swept away one after another by the tide. Only that pair of warm, gentle hands clung tightly to him, pulling with unyielding strength, telling him, "Fanshawe, run!" "I no longer wish to run. I no longer have the strength to. If fear sets in, strike a match. But the matches are soaked too. Take me away then." "Mr. Fan!" The sea water slowly ebbed away, and in its place appeared Lucian's smiling face. "Let's have a drink together." "Okay," Fanshawe answered lightly, and his expression calm. "But I'd like to hear you sing a song first." "Me? Sing?" Lucian glanced at the microphone standing at the center of the bar stage. "I can't do it. I don't sing well." Fanshawe took an exquisite gift box from his assistant's hands. With his finger he loosened the ribbon, and the deep blue velvet packaging unfolded to reveal a crown, inlaid with crystals of every hue, gleaming brilliantly beneath the refracted glow of the starry dome. Lucian froze in astonishment. "This is the finale crown from the fashion show?" "Yes, now it belongs to you." Fanshawe's words were light, almost casual. "Since it is yours, it's no longer suitable for anyone else to wear it." Seeing Lucian still somewhat at a loss, Fanshawe's Chinese assistant spoke up at just the right moment. "Mr. Lu, President Fan has already become the first major client of Zeni Jewelry's autumn-winter show collection. This crown is what he purchased to gift you. Furthermore, the brand has stated that as the rightful owner of this crown, you should be the one to showcase it on the runway." Before Lucian could fully digest the information, Fanshawe lifted the crown from its box and set it upon his head. He leaned close, his voice a tender murmur at Lucian's ear. "Your Highness, the Prince, may I have the honor of asking you to sing a song for me?" "Which opera is being performed here?" Fanshawe's friends leaned in, egging them on with teasing laughter. Flustered, Lucian hurriedly stood up. His face flushed red as he stammered, "If Mr. Fan doesn't mind how unpleasant it might sound, then I'll—" Fanshawe leaned back slowly, resting one arm along the back of the sofa, his body stretched out with languid grace, legs crossed, the light in his eyes brighter and more dazzling than the stars themselves. "Go ahead," he said. As the music began, the already dim lighting of the bar sank even deeper until the only glow gathered tightly at the center stage. A slow ballad drifted out and Lucian's voice, warm and filled with emotion, carried into the air. Wearing a crown upon his head, he looked down from the stage. Fan Xiao raised his glass in response. "And who's this one now?" "Shi Liu," said, lifting his wine glass. "Why is it that lately you have been only surrounding yourself with men?" Fan Xiao said nothing. He merely lifted a hand and pushed him away. It was about time to bring this game to an end. Pulling out his phone, he dialed a number, quickening the pace of the play. The call was picked up after only a few rings. Amid the noise all around, Fan Xiao heard a deep, mellow voice. "President Fan? President Fan." Those simple two words yanked him abruptly back into the shadowed confines of the car. He was pressing down the burning hot body of a man claiming a punishment. That man's eyes, filled with desire, almost greedy in their hunger, lingered upon his hand before asking softly, "How will you punish me? How will you punish me?" The desire Fanshawe had failed to release yesterday once again stirred restlessly within him. This was not normal. "Fanshawe?" came Shulang's voice again from the phone. The form of address changed this time. "Shulang?" Fanshawe's tone was low, and in the din around him he asked, "What are you doing?" "Me? Nothing much. Just watching the game at home." Fanshawe's gaze drifted to the stage where Lucian stood. His lips parted slightly. "With a girlfriend keeping you company? That's nice." There was a brief pause on the other end before the reply came. "Just myself." "Oh, Director Yu, such a long night and no beauty to keep you company." "He has a social engagement tonight." "A pity then, to waste such a fine night." Fanjo's words slipped a touch beyond propriety. On the other end came a voice tinged with helplessness. "Did you call because you needed something from me?" "Nothing in particular," Fanjo said, his brows and eyes holding the trace of a smile. "I just heard someone singing beautifully here in the bar and thought I'd let you hear it too. After all, you're the only friend I have in this city." He lifted his phone, the heat in his eyes gradually fading. "Do you hear it? Nice, isn't it?" The song drifted distant and ethereal, wrapped in a clutter of noise. After a brief silence, the voice on the other end gave a perfunctory reply. "Not bad." "Shulang, why don't you come over for a while? We are just a few close friends hanging out here at Conque." "Aren't I your only friend in the city?" A low laugh came from the line. "President Fan never lacks for friends wherever he goes. Best not to flatter me like that again." "Anything else? If not, I'll hang up. I'm watching the game." The brusque tone only made Fanshawe chuckle. With his usual good temper, he said, "Director Yu is getting more and more blunt with me. Where is the politeness you showed me when we first met?" The voice on the other side laughed as well. "Politeness is for outsiders. You don't really count as one anymore." His heart lurched all at once, thrown into disarray. On stage, the singing ceased. After quite a long while, Fanshawe, still holding his phone, thought the game was actually pretty interesting. End of chapter 16.